Primal Bones is rooted in the belief that the body heals itself when given the right signals, not just metaphorically but literally. Through tools like osteogenic loading, primal movement, and environmental alignment, we activate the body's natural ability to regenerate at the deepest level, the skeleton. This podcast explores how to create a healing ecosystem inside and out so the body doesn't just survive, it rebuilds, grows stronger, and remembers what it's made of. From bone density to nervous system resilience, from gut health to sunlight, Primal Bones is about relearning the physical and philosophical foundations of thriving. Hey everyone, welcome to the Primal Bones podcast, where we have real conversations about bones, strength, and how you can live your best life.
We're your hosts, Jane and Bill Heaven, and we're not just partners in life, we're partners in business. We're the proud owners of OsteoStrong Canfield.
And today's episode is going to be a little different because we're going to interview each other and give you an idea of what it's like for us to work together and also just the amazing results that we see at OsteoStrong.
So whether you've never heard of OsteoStrong or you're already a member, we hope this episode gives you some behind-the-scenes look at what we do, why we're passionate about it, and how it might just change your life.
So grab a coffee and get comfortable and let's get started.
So Jane, when you were first diagnosed with osteoporosis, I guess it was osteopenia first, what was going through your mind and how did that moment ultimately lead you to OsteoStrong?
When I was first diagnosed with osteoporosis, the very first thing that went through my mind was that I would lose my mobility. And that was scary because I had watched my mother lose her mobility as she got older. The other thing that I thought about was, the risk of dying. When you break a bone, break a hip bone, break the femoral neck, after the age of 60, you have an increased risk of dying. So those things scared me, and I did not want to take the pharmaceutical that the doctor recommended. Particularly, I didn't want to take it after I spoke with my dentist, because when I told my dentist that I was thinking about taking this drug, Prolia, he basically went pale. And he said to me, don't do that, please don't do that. And so I started looking into that more. But I also recalled one thing that my doctors said, which was, you need to lift heavy. So trying to figure out what lifting heavy meant. I was already in the gym a couple of times a week, doing leg presses, doing chest presses, doing deadlifts, and I thought I was lifting as pretty much what I could, the most I could lift. But lifting heavy, that whole concept, led me to discover the term osteogenic loading, which John Jaquish coined. And the concept of osteogenic loading is that you are loading your skeleton with many multiples of your body weight. So for example, in the gym, if I do a leg press, I weigh about 135 pounds. I can press maybe 140 pounds with a leg press. But osteogenic loading would allow me to press 4.2 multiples of my body weight, or even higher than that, which is what's needed to trigger bone growth, from what I learned from when I was studying and researching. So all of that led me to OsteoStrong. And I found an OsteoStrong up in Bainbridge, which is right outside of Chagrin Falls. And I waited until I made an appointment, but I wanted it to be when Sarah, our daughter, who had just started med school, when she was home on break. So I had her go with me. I said, Sarah, you need to help me check this out and see if this is something that I should be doing. And a couple of things entered my mind with OsteoStrong. I thought, well, I'm going to have to, just like you go to the gym 3 times a week, I'm probably going to have to do this 3 times a week, which would mean I'd have to drive to Bainbridge 3 times a week. That's exactly what I was thinking. And I was thinking, wow, the cost is going to be pretty high too, because I've done personal training before and I know how expensive that is. But anyway, when Sarah went with me up to Bainbridge, we went through, did a session with guidance from their coaches, and they did a wonderful education for us. And Sarah said, Mom, this is exactly what you have to do. She said, we just studied this in med school. It's called Wolff's Law. And what Wolff's Law is if you put pressure on a bone end to end on its axis, that will trigger bone growth. And so as long as you have enough pressure. So having Sarah confirm to me that that's what I should do, I started going to OsteoStrong, and I was really pleased to find out it was only once a week. And the cost was not nearly the cost that I would be paying for personal training at all. I was very excited about that. And so I continued going. And I think you saw some results in me before I even did.
Well, I would say I definitely did. I mean, you could tell. I didn't really know all the background, what you just went into about all your, your fear and everything. That really didn't make it to my level. But I mean, I could just tell that you were more confident. You were kind of. I'll use the phrase, you were more like yourself. You were normal. I'll try not to use my air quotes because I always get made fun of when I do air quotes. But you were kind of normal acting the way you had your whole life. So I could tell that it was, it was a good thing and it was working. And I think the proof is in the pudding because you had scans right after that, and so the reason why you really got into OsteoStrong is you were back in that what does lifting heavy mean, which we can go into a lot of definition and stories to tell people about that. But you originally started out with osteopenia, and then you, like you said, you were always in the gym, so you were lifting weights. So you just assumed that everything would reverse itself, and it didn't. You went from osteopenia to osteoporosis. Then you did all the research and found OsteoStrong, did that for a while, and then you reversed it back to, it went from osteoporosis back to osteopenia. So, then I was going like, I wonder how this stuff works and that. So like I think you had, you've asked me in the past if I was skeptical. Well, yeah, I'm skeptical because I'm skeptical about everything. But so I went with you up to Bainbridge just to try it because I'm going like, well, this stuff's, pretty cool. And I'm looking at it on the internet, and it's these 4 machines that, it looks like a gym, but it's far from a gym. It's not, the machines don't even move. And, so I went through and did a session, and it was kind of cool. So, I said, well, yeah, you definitely need to keep doing it because it obviously works. So, you just kept, driving to Bainbridge once a week and continue to see positive results.
Well, like you mentioned, that I became myself again, and I did have a lot of fear. And I am just like most women, when they find out that they have low bone density, they become fearful. And, doctors often will tell women, do not lift anything heavy. Don't lift over 10 pounds. And yet you have to lift in order to stimulate bone growth. But it makes a person very vulnerable and very afraid. I have stories from people that come into our OsteoStrong that tell us, yeah, I quit going on long hikes with my family because I was afraid of falling. Or I don't ride a bike anymore because I'm afraid of falling. So there are so many fears associated with that. And I noticed that was one of the things that just started to change in me, that I became less fearful. And And I'm sure it had a lot to do with just feeling stronger, but it's a whole mindset. When you start to do something and you know you're doing something really positive for your health, you really feel better. You feel more empowered. And that's what I think I liked about it too. But so I know you were skeptical at first, but when did you start thinking that we should invest in an OsteoStrong?
So I won't remember the numbers, but like I alluded to before about your ability to do, like, I mean, you're the super sleuth researcher on the internet, and so I trusted that. And then I kept going back to, so Jane and I used to work together before we started dating, and it was in between, the when we just worked together and then we started dating, and then we worked for a computer company, and it was installing computer systems throughout the country, and we were on different installation teams. So when you went out to install the system, you went, a team of two, but you were there for at least a week. And I remember you being on a business trip doing one of our installations, and you came back and you're saying, like, I found this great company that we should invest in. And I'm going, oh yeah, who's that? And it was something that neither one of us had heard from. It's like, she goes, Starbucks. And I'm going, like, there ain't no way in hell I'm investing money in a coffee place. It's never going to amount to anything. And I think I did the math a couple years later, and it was, Starbucks had grown like something like 19,000%. And it was just like off the charts. We would have probably be sipping drinks out of, tropical glasses with umbrellas and everything else. But so I was kind of like, I'm not going to let her.
I love to hear you tell this story.
I'm not going to give her another.
Shows I was right.
I'm not going to give her another I told you so moment. So, she found this OsteoStrong thing, which I just got done talking about how it was obvious that it worked. But then, so also Jane did quilting because, she was looking for a hobby. That's an interesting hobby. So guys, if your wife or girlfriend ever says you want to do quilting, and you go like, oh, well, I'll just get her something for Christmas that's on the quilting thing. There's nothing little that you can buy for quilting. It's like you have to jump in with both feet and spend like thousands of dollars on a quilting
Not
sewing
quite.
machine. Yeah, it's pretty expensive.
Well, I guess it was, yeah.
But anyways, Jane did quilting, and she would go every Monday and she'd do quilting, and then she'd have to go to Bainbridge for her osteogenic loading session on Monday afternoon. And so she'd always excuse herself from the quilting group. And so the ladies that she quilted with would say, like, well, Jane, where do you go on Mondays when you're always leaving? And she starts telling the story, and they go, oh, that sounds kind of interesting. And I think couple of these women also had osteoporosis, osteopenia. And they said, we'd like to go with you. And they went along with her one time. And then, long story short, they ended up joining. And it's like a year later that all three of these women drive once a week to Bainbridge to do OsteoStrong. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I've already got the first I told you so thing that I need to dodge with so I don't have Starbucks too. And then I see these women all trudging to Cleveland, whether it's snowing, rain, sleet.
Never missed a week?
Never missed a week. And saying like, well, maybe we should start investigating this and see what we can do. So for those of you that don't know, my background, I'm a CPA, but in a lot of cases, people think that's certified public accounting, but in my case, it's couldn't pass again. But so I started building this monster spreadsheet / business plan on if we bring OsteoStrong to Canfield, and I mean, it was the coolest spreadsheet that you ever want to see. If you want to see it sometime, maybe I'll show it to you. But it took me months to build this spreadsheet, and came through it. At the bottom line was, it looked like we had a decent shot of it working. So we moved forward, and so I'm doing the inquiry calls and stuff and figuring out just how much it costs to bring an open an OsteoStrong franchise, which I knew, but the more I dug into it, the more I'm going like, swallowing hard and going, well, yeah, the business plan makes sense. It works. I think we got a good shot at being successful if we do it. But before I sign on the dotted line, I need to do it more frequently. So again, we knew I think there's 6 OsteoStrongs up in the Cleveland area, but at the time I was working at one of the local CPA firms, and my closest, because of the proximity to Route 11, the closest OsteoStrong to me was in Green. So I went up there and signed up, did all the prelim stuff to see how they acquire customers, because that was, part of my business planning. So did that, but my intention was only to go for the first month. So I did that for a month. And I think 3 weeks into it, it was springtime. And we used to, I think it was May, we always do the, get the yard ready for summer. And I like to try to get the mulch and everything down before or on Memorial Day weekend so you can enjoy it for the whole summer. And we bought the house from somebody, and they must have had a landscaper in the family or something, because they had, just a stupid amount of flower beds in this yard. And to put mulch in all of them, I think we do like 12 to 15 yards a year, which 12 to 15 yards of mulch is a enormous pile from a dump truck on your driveway. And you basically have to get that done within a day and a half. And it was like, it took every ounce of my effort to lay mulch down, and I'd basically have to take the next week off of work because I was so sore.
That's an exaggeration. A whole week.
Yeah, definitely,
Definitely
a day or two. But it felt like crap for many days. But I had been doing OsteoStrong for 3 weeks, and I went out and I worked all day Saturday, and I think we did 12 yards of mulch. You helped me. And, we got rid of the pile in a day, which was kind of strange so we must have been moving faster, and woke up the next day and got out of bed and didn't feel like I needed to go see the chiropractor or anything like that. I felt really good. So I started trying to analyze, why did I feel so good? And the only thing different in my life was that I was doing OsteoStrong. So I said, well, it's got to be OsteoStrong. It's the osteogenic loading. It's, everything in your body works together, the muscular system, the skeletal system. So long story short, I kept going to OsteoStrong, and I did OsteoStrong every week religiously up until we inked the contract to become an OsteoStrong franchise in Canfield. And as soon as I had a delivery date when our what's called Spectrum equipment was delivered and installed, it wasn't until then that I stopped going to Green and started just going to our OsteoStrong in Canfield to do my weekly osteogenic loading, because it just made me feel better. And that's similar results testimonies we get from most of our clients, that it makes them feel better. So that's how I got to thinking it was a good business opportunity. So what was it with you that made you think it was the right business to open together?
Well, after doing OsteoStrong regularly, I felt always that this was something my body needed. And I started to think that, gosh, I want to do this long term. I want to do this for the rest of my life, because this is what's going to keep us healthy, help keep us strong. And I started thinking, well, heck, let's bring this closer to us so we don't have to drive an hour one way. And the more we thought about it, I know for me, the more I thought about it was it became kind of a mission because I wanted other people to experience OsteoStrong. I wanted other people to have the same experience and to feel better about growing older, especially. And so it became about longevity. It became about helping other people, and that when I realized that we could help people who have that fear of falling, of fracturing, that we can help alleviate that and give somebody their physical freedom back. That was monumental, very important to me.
Yeah, it has been pretty cool from that perspective. I obviously don't remember some of the names, but I do remember when we were doing the build out, when we had the construction phase going on, and we'd go up there basically every day to check on it. And I mean, it happened more than once, but we had that one woman that was like banging on the door, and she'd obviously done some research and knew what OsteoStrong was, because at that point, we had our coming soon sign up, and the woman basically started crying because she was so happy that we were going to
Sure.
open up
Sure,
an
because
OsteoStrong.
for a lot of people, that knowing that you can do something naturally, and you don't have to rely on the bone drugs that have so many serious side effects. To be given that, it's like a gift. To be given an opportunity, and that's how I felt that it was truly. Actually, I can remember when I first was diagnosed with osteoporosis, putting it into God's hands and saying, all right, Lord, in my prayer, you know my body, you made me, you know my bones. Please bring something good out of this. And I felt like OsteoStrong and us bringing OsteoStrong Canfield to the area was the something good. And it gets proved out every day.
So let's shift gears a little bit and break it down. For somebody that's never heard of OsteoStrong, how would you explain what it is and how it works?
So OsteoStrong is a place where you can go to strengthen your skeletal system. And when you strengthen your skeletal system, you're doing a number of things. You're helping improve your balance, you're improving your posture, you're improving your grip strength, and you're building stronger bones, building better bone density, and building power in the muscles. And power in the muscles is extremely important, because that's what allows you to really do a lot of the things that you hadn't been able to do. It's not necessarily about the way a muscle looks, it's the way the muscle performs. And that's what we do at OsteoStrong. It's a once a week system, and you only have to go once a week because of the way bone metabolizes. And also, I'll just bring into the conversation the term the ultimate biohack, which is what OsteoStrong is. So biohacking has become pretty popular lately, but 10 years ago, when OsteoStrong was first a concept and then went into practice, Dave Asprey, who is considered the father of biohacking, coined the phrase the ultimate biohack to refer to OsteoStrong. And a biohack is a way of hacking your biology to get the best results, the maximum results in a short amount of time. And OsteoStrong, he claims, is the ultimate biohack, because what you're doing is you are strengthening that skeletal system, which is the very foundation of your body. And you can do that with OsteoStrong and get tremendous results, but very powerfully in a very short period of time.
So it's actually fits. So the biohack term actually, I mean, most of our clients are older, but we do have some younger clients. But that biohack term kind of fits into today's society and life, where it's instant gratification, so you can do things a lot faster, and you don't have to be in a gym for an hour. You only have to be at OsteoStrong for about 10 minutes, and that, so it comes right into today's society of like everything wanted quick. So a
Right.
biohack is quick.
Right.
And,
Well,
actually,
and it does. I mean, I'll say that it appeals to people in my age group. People who are a little bit younger, a little bit older, because a lot of people get to the point where they don't want to go to a gym, and so OsteoStrong is fantastic for that reason, that you don't have to go to a gym. And you can get results in a very short period of time, 10 minutes once a week. But it also appeals to younger people who want to get better results in the gym. They want to be stronger in the gym. They want to jump higher. They want to, like for a swimmer, they want to get off the blocks faster. They want to have a better kick going out of the water. Or any athlete actually can benefit from OsteoStrong, because you're strengthening the core foundation of your body. And we know that and maybe you want to speak to this a little bit too, of how your muscles can only get so strong.
right. So I mean, OsteoStrong, the osteogenic loading. I mean, obviously, your body will heal a bone whenever, but I mean, I'm sure everybody has the experience, whether it's their own or someone in their family. You get a young child that breaks a bone, and they're in a cast for 4 weeks, whereas excuse me, you have someone that's older, like remember when your mom fell and broke her shoulder. I mean, it took like 12 weeks for her bone to heal, but they both healed, but it's the strength of the bone. And so actually scientific studies show that you reach peak bone density at the age of 30, and then it trails off quicker for women than men, but it starts trailing off from that 30, and it drops at like 2 or 3% a year, or it accelerates once women hit menopause. But it's going through that, but everything working together. So OsteoStrong, when it does that end-to-end compression, it's called an adaptive response, which is similar to when you shine a flashlight in your eye, your pupil dilates. It's, that's an adaptive response, but it's, working with that. And our bodies are this true miracle. When God designed us, it was just miraculous, but there's an adaptive response that, everything's working together and along that adaptive response. Because did you ever go shake hands with that big burly guy, and he grabs your hand and feels like he's going to break it and smash it into smithereens, and you have an adaptive response that you pull away before the big burly guy can break your hand. So it's the same type of thing. And when you start to get that pain, you break away. But along with how your central nervous system interacts with your skeletal system, and I do this. This is our first episode of the podcast, so I don't really know if I'm on, people are going to just be listening to me or watching me on camera. But you often see, as people get older, they start to hunch over. And that's because their bones are getting weaker. Like I described that at 30, it starts to trail off. The bones are getting weaker. And so then the muscles start to get weaker, and you don't have the strength to hold your head up, to hold your shoulders back, so you slouch. So just like you break the hand grip when the person's trying to break your hand with the big handshake, everything fits together. So, that big burly guy going to the gym 3 times a week for 2 hours a day, he's getting ticked off because he's quote unquote plateauing because he's not getting any stronger. Well, he's not getting any stronger because his body is so in tune with itself that it has to wait until his skeletal system gets stronger to support those muscles. Because just like he's trying to break your hand with the big handshake, when he starts, flexing his guns or whatever and wants to show his biceps, if he's not plateauing, he could actually break his arm by just flexing. So
Right. Well, because the way the body's designed is that what an awesome creator, but our bodies are designed so that we do not hurt ourselves. Our muscles cannot get stronger than our bones because our muscles would cause the bone to break. So we see a lot of really incredible results from people who come and do OsteoStrong. Probably the very first result that we will see, because we test baselines when someone comes in, and one of our baseline measurements is balance. And we put a person on an unstable platform, which is a vibration plate, only for a few minutes, but we'll test your balance on that. And I have seen incredible results from that, where somebody is only able to stand on the vibration plate on one leg for maybe 3 or 4 seconds. So we record that, and then 5 sessions later, we test their balance again, and now they're standing for 10 seconds. And we do know there's good statistics that if you're able to stand on one leg for 10 seconds, that you have a better chance at living a longer life. If it's less than 10 seconds, you have a greater chance of dying early. So balance is key. We see good balance. We see posture increases. Sometimes we don't generally take a posture picture, a repeat one for a year after someone's been with us. And we will see these amazing results where someone is actually standing so much taller than they were. They've gained height. I've had a couple of members gain an inch in height, and which they're thrilled about because they've lost that height and now they've gained it back. And of course, bone density. We see all the time.
What's the bone density? What do you call that? The Wall of Fame? The
Yeah,
All-Star thing?
I have bone density all-stars in our center. We have pictures and little caps, little descriptions of how much bone density they gained. So somebody will come to us when they start with a DEXA scan that says they have like a -2.5, which is osteoporosis, let's say in their femoral neck. And then a year to 2 years later, I've seen it even as soon as 7 months, but they'll come back and they'll have increased that bone density, and their T-score is a -2.3. It's osteopenia again. So we can go into all of that later, but the DEXA scans being able to show somebody that you've increased your bone density. Again, it's just remarkable. And this is all being done naturally. It's being done without any sweat. You're not perspiring. You're on the machines for a total of about 10 minutes. You're only pushing for about 60 seconds. And you have a coach with you, which is like, again, another reassuring aspect of it. And we're emulating high impact, and so it's impact without the risk.
So what with the high impact? So you said real early in this episode, talking about lifting heavy. Well, we actually know what lifting heavy means now, and I constantly, chuckle about it when So tell us about what is it, 4.2 multiples of body weight for your legs?
Sure.
Can you give
So
us?
a study was done in 2012 by researchers who wanted to know, because it's been known, you need to put force on a bone or weight on a bone, but how much? And you'll see articles all the time where people will say, "Oh, you can walk, you can run, go to the gym and lift these little 10-pound weights." And oh, yeah, that'll help increase your bone density. Well, a study was done in 2012 that said, all right, just how much weight is needed? How much weight is needed to increase bone density in the femoral neck, which is the femoral neck is where your the femur, the top of your leg, joins your pelvis, basically, that area. And because that's an area that if you break it, it's a mortality fracture. So, you want to strengthen that. So they put accelerometers on a group of people, and they had them do all kinds of activities, and they actually did they measured bone density, but they also did blood markers, which are a good indicator if you're building bone or not. And what they discovered is that the only group of people that were able to achieve bone growth, whether they were running, walking, lifting weights, jumping, were those that were able to reach 4.2 multiples of their body weight. So if they weighed 100 pounds or 100, let's say 150 pounds, that would be over 600 pounds of weight. Now, really, the only way you can really do that, and because even power lifters can't do that, but the only way that you can do it is to jump off of a table, like an athlete, like a gymnast does.
Yeah, don't they say? Isn't there a thing with gymnasts have the best
Yeah,
bones?
and that's how when Dr. Jaquish created these machines, he studied gymnasts because they have the strongest bones, but they also retire at the age of 19 because of
Their joints are shot.
Their joints are shot. So, but the way that you can increase that or hit that multiple of your body weight is to jump off of a table. Well, when Dr. Jaquish, his mother had osteoporosis, and he said, "Well, Mom, let's figure out how we can overcome this, because you're basically a deconditioned bone. We're going to recondition it." Well, he knew he wasn't going to get her jumping off tables, and that's why he created these devices. The first one was a very rough-looking kind of device with some pulleys and chains, and he had to get his mother into these things. And but faithfully, she did, and before long, she was had at 80 years old, had the bones of a 30-year-old. So
Didn't he tell us a story about, because we actually met him. He's actually a pretty interesting guy to talk to, kind of real funny, but didn't he tell us, like, at the time his mother was like, routinely picking up 40-pound bags of soil and stuff and just walking across the yard with it?
And she didn't even realize she was doing that. And he's like, "Mom, do you realize what you're doing now? You've gained this much strength." So, so the majority of our members are women, because women find out from a DEXA scan, usually when they're in menopause or postmenopause, that they have osteopenia or osteoporosis. But men are also have also seen great results. Can you speak to that?
So, yeah, like I said, you reach maximum bone density at 30, and then it starts to go downhill pretty quicker, more for women than men. But men actually can get osteoporosis as well. So you never hear about that, though, and men are not really ever checked for it, because when we start to get older and we get doing our annual physicals and stuff, the women always, they're at their OBGYN and they say, like, "All right, well, it's time to get a DEXA scan." But what happens with men when they're at their annual physical? It's not, "Let's get you a DEXA scan." It's like, "All right, time to check your prostate." And I think everybody on this podcast will probably be pretty surprised to find out that men are more likely to develop osteoporosis than they are to develop prostate cancer. But
That's
you've
surprising.
never heard
Yeah,
that, and you
right.
never will hear that. But that's the truth. So any ladies that are out there listening to this podcast, make sure you bring your husband along too, because he could be dealing with osteoporosis just like you or a woman would be. But I think we're probably around 10% male
Hmm.
membership, and I've had a lot. We get a lot of great success stories. One of the most recent from a guy that a friend of mine that's a member that have coffee with once a week, and he found out that he had to have hip replacement surgery. So he's been coming to OsteoStrong for probably over a year now, every week, and went and did his hip surgery. And the way they do the hip surgery now, you're up and walking around the same evening. So that was all normal, but he started doing the rehab, and the physical therapist is like going like, you're doing really well. I mean, it's, what do you do? What's your secret? Why are you doing so well? And he said, well, I do OsteoStrong. And I mean, the guy was 1 week after his surgery, he was just walking with the cane, came in to have coffee like nothing happened. I mean, he wasn't ready to go play tennis or anything like that, but he was getting around really well. And he attributed that all to OsteoStrong, and that was after 1 week. After 2 weeks, he no longer had a cane, and he's been ever since then. He's pretty much living life normal, and it's his rationale and why he swears by it, that it was OsteoStrong that helped him recover so quickly. And I know we've had people that have, Jane, you've told me this, where you've had people say that the surgeon came back and said, what are you doing? Because when we went to attach the part that goes into the pelvis, that it was so easy to do because the
It
bone
was really
structure.
strong. Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, we've heard multiple
It's
stories about.
it's quite remarkable once again. So it's really something for all ages, and all walks of life, all stages of life. So that's a pretty exciting. But why don't we switch gears again and just talk a little bit about what it's like to work together, owning a business together. What are some of the rewarding areas and some of the more challenging areas?
Well, the first thing I would say is, it's great. It's great to be in business as a family, but probably one of the most challenging things. Well, first off, everybody thinks it's easy to run a business. Well, I'll be the first to tell you it's not. It's very hard work, but it is rewarding. And we've talked about all the success stories that we have, and those make it worthwhile when you're going through the stress of running a business. And there's no more, I've had a tired day, I don't want to do it, because if the next day's payday and you don't feel like running payroll, you're not going to have employees that are going to stick around very long, because they're going to be pretty ticked off. But so yes, sharing those successes is great, but probably the most difficult thing is because running a business together and living together is, when does you have to try to put boundaries in place? When does the business turn on and when does the business turn off? Because like I might want to talk about OsteoStrong, or do some strategy, and it's like too late in the day, and you have no desire to do that. So it's like, but you have to learn, and you'll tell me right out point blank, like, I'm not talking about OsteoStrong right now, and then I just have to learn my lesson and go do something different. But so yeah, probably the most challenging is figuring out the boundaries of when you can talk about it, when you can't.
Yeah, and I do think though that one of the rewards of it is that it does become, it's part of your mission even as a family, and it becomes part of that. And and so we try to align everything we do with our values, and that's what we also try to do with OsteoStrong, and to try to run it according to the values that we have as a couple, as a family, and I think it's fun to see your spouse in a different light all the time. I mean, we worked together years ago before we were married, and then a little bit after we were married, but first married. But it's fun to see your spouse in a different light.
So how would you say we divide our roles at OsteoStrong?
Well, you're definitely the technical numbers guy, and I'm more. I'm more. I would say you're a visionary, and I think I take a lot of that and put it into practice. I think because I deal mostly with our members and with our staff more frequently than you do. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, I think you definitely do a great job with the customers and the members. I mean, I think you're amazing with that. I'm glad I don't have to deal with that side of it.
So what do you think our bigger vision is for this? Do you see this as a business or something more than that?
It's definitely something more. And, I alluded to the story about the woman coming in and breaking down. So, I mean, I alluded to this, the spreadsheet of all spreadsheets that, proved out that this thing could work. And, I think when we came right down to it, I mean, we started this business, later in life. We're both getting up there, and I think it would have been people would have been less shocked if we would have went and bought a house on a lake or on a beach, but instead we took out a huge loan and opened up a business. But so we always said, you can't guarantee that spreadsheet that I put together is going to hold true. So we just kind of said, like, well, as long as we can break even, it's going to be a win because we're going to be able to help people. And so that was our main goal going in, was just not to lose money and to help people. And so I think it's definitely a bigger vision. And one of the things that we've discovered, and I think you've kind of been like, my vision is that this can be someplace where somebody can come and learn about their bones. Because as you well know, there's not too many people out there that really understand what's going on with bones and with your skeletal system. And I think you're doing an awesome job at being that source. And, I'll see it all the time, because when I do pop into OsteoStrong, I'll have the people talking about, my DEXA scan. And I mean, you take the time to look at these DEXA scans with people, and you're not offering any kind of medical advice because we're not doctors, but you know an awful lot about it, and you know how to analyze it, and you know how to give them talking points where they can go back and talk to their doctor. And it's kind of funny with the different doctors, because some of the doctors get it and some of the doctors don't. We'll have a lot of doctors that recommend their patients to come to OsteoStrong because they've actually studied and read the studies and the medical research papers. And then the other ones are just kind of like, I don't know, they must be really busy and they don't look into it and they just don't understand it. But, my vision was to be like a one-stop source for bone health, bone knowledge, bone information, which I think we're doing that because
Right.
we've already started a second business as a result of this that's, doing scanning of bones. Why don't you
Well, sure,
talk a little
because
bit about that?
as Bill alluded to, I look at a lot of DEXA scans from members, and the statistics bear out that over 90% of DEXA scans have errors, and the errors are due largely to positioning of the patient on the under the X-ray. And then there are some with just different errors that exist, and it's very frustrating. So when we were at our last convention, we're introduced to the Ecolite REMS, which is the company out of Italy who has a new technology that actually been in the United States for about 3 years, but they're just now starting to really market it in the United States. And we were one of the first companies, us and our partners out of Cleveland, to bring the REMS scan to the United States. And what that stands for is radio frequency echographic multispectrometry. And I can't believe I just said that.
That's a mouthful.
Completely. But the REMS is much safer than the DEXA since it does not have any X-ray. It's an ultrasound. But the cool thing about the REMS is that not only will it give you a bone density score, but it will give you a look at your bone quality, so you can see how strong your bones are. So this has really expanded for us and given us another avenue to really help people understand bone health. So we're excited about that. It'll be again at our center. We'll have it in November 11th and 12th, so people can sign up at www.ohioboneimg.com to schedule a scan. But
sounds like a shameless plug.
That was, but I think it's a technology. It's a leading technology. It's cutting edge. It's now becoming the standard in Europe. It will take a while before it becomes the standard here, but we do have a lot of doctors asking for more information about it and wanting to understand it. So the more information that we can provide, another data point that we can provide for our members and for others who are looking to understand bone health. Bone health is much more complex than you would imagine. If you think about bones as being the reservoir for all these minerals in your body, and we're just beautifully and wonderfully made, and given the right environment, our bodies can start to heal themselves. So that's one of the things that we really want to try to stress. But anyway, let's do a little rapid fire.
We can do rapid fire, but before you do that, I was gonna ask you if somebody's on the fence about OsteoStrong, they just, they see our Facebook ads and they just don't know whether it's for them, or what would your advice be?
I would say if you could be stronger tomorrow or a year from now than you are now, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you do that? If your life could be better in a year than it is now, or even in a month than it is now, why wouldn't you do it? I feel very strongly about that because it has changed my life. So I'm very excited. All right, let's go to the rapid fire.
All right, we can go to the rapid fire.
All right. So what's one health habit that you swear by that's not OsteoStrong?
So I'm a big proponent of walking stairs, flights of stairs.
I know you've worn out our carpet. I
don't think I've worn it out. But I think the stat is if you walk 20 flights of stairs every day for a year, you'll lose 7 pounds in a year. So I try to walk more than 20 flights because I want to lose more than 7 pounds because, I probably don't. The one health thing that I don't do is watch what I eat. So that's what I would think. And that sleep's important. So whatever that was, that you found that device that from
the Helite,
the NASA developed, that it kind of like tries to bring your circadian rhythm back. That actually works pretty well too. So so doing steps and doing that Helite is do the biocharger for sleep.
Well, what's your go-to way to unwind after a long day?
Watching TV.
Yeah.
Which I know.
With our little red light glasses on, by the way.
I don't wear the red light glasses as much as you do.
I do.
You're more of a health nerd than I am. But which one of us would you say is a numbers person?
You, for sure.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
Just wanted the ego maniac part of me wanted to hear that. So who's the bigger health nerd?
Probably me.
What's let's see, we already did that one. If you could have dinner with any health and fitness expert, living or dead, who would it be and why?
Oh, I would pick Dr. John Jaquish for sure. He's not only is he brilliant, he developed our Spectrum devices for OsteoStrong. He developed the X3, which we have a number of members that do that. I do it myself. I think it's an incredible fitness routine. And he's brilliant. Everything he does is research based. And but he's funny. He's got a really dry sense of humor, and he's very funny. So I would enjoy having dinner with him.
Yeah, the guy's brilliant. And what's the so this is kind of like off the wall tangent, but so I believe Dr. Jaquish right now is working with NASA because they're trying to figure out. So anybody that's been to our OsteoStrong Center, it's the 4 Spectrum devices, which take up a little bit of real estate, but everybody's heard the what is Elon's going to take us to Mars, and I forget, like within 10 years or something like that. But so John Jaquish is actually working with NASA because to go to Mars, it's going to take like a long time, and you're going to be in zero gravity. So basically, when you go to Mars and come back, when you step foot on the Earth, you're going to break your legs or your bones are just going to crumble. So Jaquish is trying to figure out how to replicate his Spectrum machines in a small enough package for NASA that you can put it on a spaceship so that the astronauts, when they go to Mars, can do this osteogenic loading so they don't break their bones when they come back to Earth. So I guess Jaquish would be a good choice to go to dinner.
I think it would be awesome. But, well, what do you say? Should we wrap it up?
Fine with
Let's
me.
wrap it up. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today. We loved sharing our journey and giving you a closer look at what OsteoStrong means to us.
Yeah, and whether you're curious about how it all works or whether you're already part of the OsteoStrong family, we hope this episode gave you some things to think about, or a little bit of behind the scenes of why we're so crazy, or maybe we'll even inspire you to take the next step on your health journey.
Yeah, so give us a call. Come visit us. You can find us on Facebook. So, or leave us a review, share it with a friend, or hit the follow button. But thank you so much, and till next time,
Stay strong.
Stay strong. Thank you for listening to Primal Bones, where we break down the stories, struggles, and steps that shape us. Remember, your best life is not behind you, it's before you. Keep moving forward. God bless.